magazine ad featuring ruggedly handsome and raw people saying that love is the law and that we're all equal was really selling a scent containing a strange animal gland secretion or a chemical frequently named as the cancer-causing agent. You can dance and be vacant. You can bitch about television with shitty stations. You think the answer is to kill my TV? I'll blow your microwave up. It doesn't play DVDs or video cassette tapes of inspiring films. It violently rearranges food molecules and kills nutritional content. Traditional heating keeps a modern man's logic from rotting during a power meeting. Moderate well-being just isn't adequate. I must be equipped for no matter how bad it gets. Ambivalent sometimes, but diligently soldering together the suit of armor I dream of modeling. Nobody tries to avenge or resist things they do not believe to exist. You and I both take advantage of this every time we speak. Will we confirm or deny what is known? Will we condemn or compete for the throne? We are Atlantis, Egypt and Rome. We are what we seek. I used to holler and hoop because it suited me, participating in various victimless tomfoolery. And later on I was elusive and tight-lipped, only surfacing when certain statements required nice quips. Now it's a balancing act, different day, different hat. You got a picture of an avalanche, I'll look at that. Spaghetti dinner at a cattle ranch, I might attend. The daily dosage recommended, I'll exceed. And then I'll send a letter to the manufacturer stating that I am not a consumer, I am a capturer. I'm not affected by things I get outside of. If love is light when the night strikes, I would like love shining a bright beam, blinding an unseen century-old entity sent despite my dreams. Before it regains sight, I'm fully awake, stirring its evil energy inside a protein shake. Nobody tries to avenge or resist things they do not believe to exist. You and I both take advantage of this every time we speak. Will we confirm or deny what is known? Will we condemn or compete for the throne? We are Atlantis, Egypt and Rome. We are what we seek. Somebody tries to avenge or resist things they do not believe to exist. You and I both take advantage of this every time we speak. Will we confirm or deny what is known? Will we condemn or compete for the throne? We are Atlantis, Egypt and Rome. We are what we seek.
I love that song. Yes, welcome back to the House List and to my very special two-part mini-series on Grand Buffet. My name is Peter Goss, and I'm the host and producer of the show. Thank you for tuning in. It's my weekly podcast. It's called The House List. It's just like the guest list, so I marked your name off it. You're in the house now. You're in the building. You're in the building with Lord Grunge tonight, today on The House List. Yes, part 2 of my very special two-parter on Grand Buffet. By now, you may have listened to part 1 with Jackson, aka Grapadon, Mr. Pennsylvania, Mrs. Paintbrush. It was an incredible conversation, especially if you're a fan or knowledgeable of this group, or most likely you saw them live somewhere along the way. I already saw a bunch of feedback on the show, which I posted today. And I'm trying to do this as a back-to-back episode so that you can listen to them both back-to-back if so you choose. They were both recorded in person. They're both recorded in Pittsburgh. I just got back to New York City, in Brooklyn, New York, where I live, and drove back from Pittsburgh today. I was there for quite a little while. It was all over the city, and met up with both of the guys in different parts of the city, different times, but we were able to do this, and it was an incredible treat after 10 years not really seeing the guys. And in the early 2000s, we saw a lot of each other. And if you listen to Jackson's story, we recollected a lot. So this conversation with Lord Grunge is sort of a continuation of that, although it's just from another perspective. So we cover other stuff, we talk about other stuff, all of which you'll hear in this great conversation. It was dope. He just had a newborn baby, beautiful young lady whom I met at the house, and the guy, he's still as brilliant as ever. Both of them are, and I really realized this as I was doing this, or really after I listened to these, how much I just admire these guys' artistry. You know, they just kind of made something hilarious and brilliant and cool out of nothing in a scene that sort of like maybe never really understood them. And I just I had to be able to talk to them. And we're going to get into this right now. And but I did want to be able to plug the podcast really quick, especially if this is your very first time listening, because of our special guest today, Lord Grunge, as part of my two-parter on Grand Buffet, Pittsburgh's finest duo. This is The House List. It's a weekly podcast. Sometimes it's bi-weekly, like this time. And you can find it on iTunes as TheHouseListPodcast. It's on SoundCloud as well, and I know a lot of people tend to listen to it that way, which you can find basically at soundcloud.com /TheHouseListPodcast. So if you listen to the podcast on a desktop computer or your laptop or something, check it out there. And I urge you to retweet it, repost it, and share it. Share it freely. If you got a blog, or if you just have some friends that don't necessarily listen to podcasts but are old school Grand Buffet fans, or maybe someone that you want to put on, just send them this. It's also on Google Play, the Stitcher app, basically wherever you can find podcasts. So you might even want to go back and check out some of them. This is my 32nd episode, so it's still kind of a new thing, but there's some pretty incredible conversations that you can go back and check out. Just Ice, Todd P., whom we bring up in this actual interview, infamous Brooklyn promoter, James Pants, Gary Wilson, lots of stuff, lots of interesting conversations. So yeah, do me a favor, check it out. But yes, the guest at hand, the one and only Lord Grunge, sort of the musical backbone, the muscle, the bass, and the drum, and just a cool dude, hilarious dude. And we opened, if you're not hip to the music that I played at the very beginning, I love that song. It's called Dark Autumn. It's from an EP that they put out, that Grand Buffet as a group put out, called The Haunted Fucking Gazebo from 2007. But Grunge also released 2 solo albums a bit later on, 2013, The Tresser, and 2014, Duck Pepper. So I closed the show with a track off of The Tresser. It's actually the album closer. So those are there's 2 Lord Grunge solo albums. If you're hip to Grand Buffet and you didn't know that, seek those out and find those joints. They're cool. It's like it's a much more it's like a harsher psychedelic version, solo version of what he was doing with Grand Buffet. It's cool. It's like kind of like hardcore, sort of dark industrial metal rap rock shit, you know. It's dope though. Check it out. And yeah, with no further ado, yeah, why don't we sit back, check it out, a conversation with the one and only Lord Grunge of Grand Buffet.
Like, I was trying to recall, for my edification, clarification, how you got hip to Grand Buffet. Because at the time we had not really toured. We didn't have, we really didn't have an album out. Like we were trying to get momentum going, and I could not for the life of me recall how you heard of us. So,
well, I think I was trying to think about this too, because because I talked about it with Jackson yesterday, and I think we had a similar moment of confusion where it was like, when did this pick up? Because there was, for a few years, we saw each other a lot because you guys were touring a lot, and you're very active, and we kind of like sort of collaborated on a few different things too around the time.
You kind of joined the band for a few shows, which is pretty sweet.
Oh yeah, I did. I DJ'd, I think, a couple of shows. Yeah. So for me, it was I'm pretty sure it was even well before I think I saw you guys play. When before I even lived in Humboldt in California, in Northern California, I was living in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Like, I moved out west in late 98, 99, early 99 to Portland, and I was at a record store, and I'm pretty sure this is like kind of the trajectory, at least the inception of me kind of running across the name, is I saw a flyer for a show for Wesley Willis.
Okay.
But I didn't go to the show, but I took the flyer because I was a fan of Wesley Willis.
Right.
I'd been a fan of Wesley Willis when I was even in high school, because I mean, some of those records on Alternative Tentacles they came out in the early to mid 90s, you know?
Yeah,
Especially the one super popular one with the painting, his painting of like the Chicago skyline or something.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit, I love Wesley Willis, man. I can't believe this guy's doing a show, because growing up in small town Virginia, I was like, I wouldn't even think that was a possibility to see him live.
Right.
And then I was like, I took that flyer and I like might have even hung it up in my room. And because I was a genuine fan of his, but you guys were on that bill, so I was always like, well, I have no idea what Grand Buffet means, you know. But and this is '99, I'm pretty sure, or like right around that '99 2000.
It would have had to have been 2000, I think.
Yeah. So when I got to Humboldt, I saw that Wesley Willis was playing again, and by this time I was a little more, you know, I was able to go to the show, and it was at the Vista in Eureka, where you guys were also the opener. And if I'm not even mistaken, I think it was like Thanksgiving. Like, I think I had come back from like visiting my parents for Thanksgiving, and I was like racing to I think I flew to San Francisco and I was driving back up to Humboldt, trying to get to this show to see you guys play or something. And it's pretty fuzzy. I mean, this is obviously like almost 20 years ago now.
Well,
and I met you guys for the first time at the Vista, if I'm not mistaken.
When we were there with
Wes.
With Wes. Yeah, but this is what was confusing me, because that was after you had already done the piece in Herb.
Right. So somewhere along the line,
you must have checked us out.
Yeah.
Because in spring of 2000. I mean, I had been a Wesley Willis. We had both been fans for years.
Right.
But spring of 2000, we crossed paths with him for the first time. We did 2 shows with him. I told this little story on Heights podcast, but it's I think we could double dip. It's pretty legit.
Yeah, for sure.
But so it was the now pretty well established Dan Deacon booked Grand Buffet for a show. Not having, there was no connection between us and Wesley Willis. He was just booking shows for his college, SUNY Purchase, and you know that's what college booking dudes do. They just reach out and grab acts. So they booked us for a show with Wesley, and then totally coincidentally, the next day, Wesley was playing Pittsburgh, and we had secured the slot as the local opener. So it was these 2 back-to-back shows that kind of got us in the good graces with Wesley himself and with his manager at the time. And that weekend, I think it was like Easter weekend. I want to say it was Easter Sunday that we either played New York Easter and then drove back the next day, or we played New York Saturday, drove back. It was something around there. So almost 17 years ago to the day, actually, which is kind of wild.
Yes.
Really wild. But so that, it wasn't until many months later, but that is what led to the touring with Wesley. And we did 2 full runs with him. We did one the fall of that year.
Right.
And I don't believe we made it to the West Coast. And it was early 2001 when we got to the West Coast with Wesley. And I think that is when we met you for the first time.
Interesting. So somewhere along the line, I got Sparkle Classic. That was the album, right?
Yeah, you must have. And which is nuts, because that album had only dropped not long before that. Wait, am I off by a year? I feel like maybe I'm off by a year.
I know that I still have the black and white glossy that came with the promo CD of you guys.
Yeah.
Because you painted in your eyeballs. I remember that. Like the black and white, you know, it had the black dots in your eyes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the one where you're holding 2 like giant dildos too. Like
oh yeah, that was it. And the reason, it's funny, the eyeballs were painted in. It's so wild, man. It was such a different time. That was actually done because that was it wasn't pre-digital photography, but it was before it was the norm. It was like right before, and there was a local spot where we went, this place called Gemtech, I think, where we would, pay a couple $100 to get a big stack of glossy 8x10s.
Right.
And the problem was, like, the picture we wanted to use, there was really bad red eye. We were like, do you guys have a way to, like, correct the red eye? They're like, yeah, no problem. So it was like we paid professionals.
Wow. I always thought that was just like, you were just like,
no,
just fucking with you.
We paid, like, professional photo guys to fix red eye, and that was how they did it. All right, my brain's starting to work again. It's coming back. I was off by a year. This makes more sense. This timeline makes more sense. It was fall of 2000 when we dropped Sparkle Classic. It was 16 years ago, almost to the day, when the Dan Deacon Wesley Willis power combo happened. That was 2001. So fall of that year is when you got in touch with us, and that was when the Herb article dropped.
Right. So yeah, I wrote an article featuring Herb magazine.
Yeah, which was a big deal because I was actually a fan of the mag, and that was like a really big deal.
And at the time they were, it was a super respectable magazine, one of few that did like both like they did like multiple genres,
right.
It was like electronic music and hip hop and like some kind of forward thinking rock stuff, and so it was like the perfect kind of publication for you guys. I feel like it's like a serious like music magazine.
Yeah, it was killer. But I feel like there must have been people there who never would have touched us with a 10-foot pole. Also, though. At the same time.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I was elated that they were down to like let me write it too.
No, and that was super cool. So that makes more sense. So early 2002. The touring with Wes happened fall of 2001 and then winter, spring of 2002. So that was when I met you for the first time.
Right.
At that crazy spot. It was in Eureka.
Yeah, the Vista, which was like, and Jackson and I talked about it too. It's interesting to get your two recollections of it because it was such a long time ago too. It was like used to be a seafood restaurant that basically turned into like a dive bar that had a tiny little performance room like in the back. It's right on the water in Eureka, California, Northern California. And it's just like in the cut. It's like it was a kind of an isolated venue so they could have loud rock shows. And it was Michelle Cable, who did Panache magazine, was like a big promoter in Humboldt, who then would have her own booking agency I worked at for a while too. But she was the promoter of that show too.
That's what's
and
up.
It was just one of many Grand Buffet performances in Humboldt too. Because for a while you developed. Like, as part of the circuit, it was like we kind of would return and play multiple times.
Yeah. And it's funny because we ended up seeing you, like we didn't know at the time, but we ended up seeing you a couple months later when we were there with Sage and Edon.
Right. So that's even more memorable because that was the
nicer venue.
Yeah, it was this theater. It was a repertory theater.
Yeah.
Which was one that we only, that's the only show I ever did there. And it was, that was, so what was the package of that tour too? Because that was a pretty interesting lineup as well.
Yeah, that was us and Edon and Sage had
Signify?
Shalem,
okay.
DJ Shalem with him.
Yes.
Now that I'm talking about it, it's starting to firm up in my mind a little bit more.
Yeah, the fog is starting to lift a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will say this, I don't know where this fits into it, but obviously, like, we also connected through the music video for Candy Bars, too, which I put on the Culturama tapes, which I was doing these VHS video tape compilations.
I love those comps, man.
Hell yeah, thanks, man.
The one, and it wasn't just because we were on it. It was like that hit me to a lot of other shit that was happening that I had no idea about previously.
Right.
Like that was a thing where it's like, we would roll with that cassette. Like if we went to play Baltimore, we'd like take it and be like, wherever we stayed, be like, check this out, fire this up. Like, that was super cool, man.
It was a cool. I love doing those, and that I think that was it hit at a certain time, and when the first runs of them were VHS tapes, and then I did like really small runs of DVD-Rs, but those VHS ones they really got around, and it was like the same way you would watch like some weird kind of like cult movie, like a B movie or something like that, or like skate videos and stuff like that, where you put them on like at a party and shit. But it was at a time too when music videos were at an all-time low. MTV had turned into this kind of like, real world kind of like facade thing. So there was no outlet. So it was like all these great regional videos too,
Yeah, it was super cool. It really felt like this dude, this mysterious fella from Humboldt County is like pooling a bunch of dope shit, and it's like you created like kind of a bona fide like underground little scene, where it's so weird now, not to go off on a tangent, but it's just like shit is just so different now, where everything, there is no more DIY really. There's no more, I mean, there's DIY as far as like you do shit yourself, you don't wait for people to do it for you, but it's like, it used to be, the goal used to be not just for GB, but I think for a lot of independent musicians was to like, minimize any kind of like corporate fingerprint. And I'm not anti big business at all, but it was just like it was an integrity thing. It wasn't some like lefty like fuck big business. It was just like want to keep the shit as pure as possible, like like as few fingerprints as possible. And it's like now that I really just feel like that doesn't exist. It's like everything is channeled through one giant conglomerate or another, even if it's YouTube or whatever, or
Facebook.
It's all like if you're in the game, you have to suck the devil's dick a little bit, and it's just like,
definitely there is a little less. I'm actually probably considerable less amount of freedom of choice, I think, for like how an artist can kind of control their artwork and shit, their the way they put stuff out or how they tour. I mean, it's all, every kind of facet of it is lost. A lot of the control of the artist has been taken away a lot, I feel.
I agree, and it's weird because so many people think it's like, oh, it's so empowering, like you don't need a label anymore, you don't need it's like you never really needed a label. It was a cool option, but you never really needed one.
Well, I mean, the first like several releases of yours were all just released. I mean, you were the label, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that was like, and it wasn't that like we had like a trust fund at our display. It was just like we were just like, fuck it, let's just do it,
right?
And that was cool. And I'm not knocking people for like utilizing the internet to promote their shit. I don't want it to sound like I am, but it's a weird, I don't know. It almost feels like a weird like post-apocalyptic time, and it's going to be interesting to see how shit plays out. At the end of the day, as long as people are creating stuff, I'm psyched. However, like the means by which they distribute it is kind of secondary. It's like
true.
People are making shit, then that's cool.
Because it's not to say the way that we did it 17 years ago was like particularly easy or like glamorous or sexy or whatever.
Right.
It was tough. It was tricky.
Right. Totally.
And, involved a lot of gumption and like ingenuity and stuff like that.
It required like to do something as simple as like assemble a video compilation,
right? Or even make a flyer. You guys did a lot of your tour artwork and shit too. And it definitely. I feel like it took a little more resolve to get shit done than it does now. And like, I don't know, in summation, because I don't want to turn this into like me being on my soapbox, but like what concerns me now with everything being funneled through these massive infrastructures is the censorship issue, because I think eventually we're going to see that come into play in a way that's like really damaging and really shitty. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah.
Just where it's like where content is going to become where you're going to have to it's going to be like a pay to play thing or like a, and that bums me out, whereas I feel like.
Yeah, there's a certain it's almost inevitable that this that's a possibility for sure. Once it's like a great club, eventually the potential to get very greedy is there, and then you see those pay-to-play shows too, which then tarnishes the club.
Totally. And I don't, pay-to-play isn't the worst thing in the world, you know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, you want,
Well, it's an opportunity too.
It's an opportunity, right? Yeah, and it almost feels, we had to do some of that shit.
Did you?
We did, believe it or not, in Pittsburgh, like that was a thing here, for sure.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about just your... I guess making your way in Pittsburgh too, because it's obviously like was not easy, right?
There was kind of we used to joke about it and like call it like, I don't know, like the 0 year. Like there was a period we graduated from high school, and we both were like did the bro handshake, like we're gonna commit to doing this band.
What high school did you go to?
Oh man, I don't like to talk about
Okay.
it. But there's no future in Fronton. So
Right.
I mean, we went to Hampton, which is
Okay. I don't know the high schools here, so I just
no.
context.
It's funny. My lady went to Hampton too. It's
Okay.
kind of weird. Like all roads lead to Rome, but it's just it's a northern suburbs of Pittsburgh. Right. It's at the time it was just kind of whatever, but it's weird. It's evolved into like a very, I don't know, almost like uppity, lily white kind of shit.
Well, yeah, that's 20 plus years ago, probably, right?
Yeah.
That you graduated.
Right. Actually, shit, yeah, man. 21 years ago. Jesus H. Christ.
Wow.
Wild.
Were you guys doing shows in high school too, or?
Our senior year, it was kind of when we very slowly were getting the ball rolling. I think we might have done two gigs maybe our senior year in high school, 2 or 3. And then like it was kind of it was a slow burn because like we were both we were pretty hungry, we were pretty ambitious, and we both believed that what we were doing was dope, but it took a while. It took several years for it to kind of, I guess, get fleshed out into a thing that that people responded to, in a way that was kind of that ended up like it went from being a cool thing that happened in and around Pittsburgh for a couple of years to something that like was cool on a level that it was able to open doors for itself,
Yeah.
But that was a wild time, man, and I don't know. Someday I feel like I want to just come with the memoir with like a really detailed account of those couple years, because it was.
Did you keep a record?
Not as thoroughly as I should have, but I have a lot of journals. I have a lot of flyers. I mean, I think if I set aside a month, I could piecemeal pretty close to like every show we played.
Wow,
close.
That's dope.
I'm sure I'd fuck a couple up, like I'd miss a few,
including the touring.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like I don't have it all in one place where I could just crack it open, which is what I should have done. I mean, that would have been dope. Hindsight 2020, but yeah, if I set aside a little time, I think I could piecemeal a pretty accurate chronological like record.
Because you were like the tour manager for all intents and purposes too, right? Like,
yeah, with the exception of a couple tours, I was pretty much always designated tour manager. There were a couple when we were touring with larger acts where we just kind of got tour managed by by that tour manager. That happened a couple times. And
yeah, I want to get to that too, for sure, because that's like some of the later chapters of the group. I mean, what I'm so familiar with is really when it's like just the two of you guys kind of pounding it out on the road for those in the early 2000s, when it was really like you were just this kind of self-sustaining duo, really, like because you did the website too, right?
Yeah.
It was an amazing website. I always remember that. It had like the really bright color neon with like the black letters, but it always had a constant stream of show dates. Kept
it simple, show dates, and then like the occasional, funny remark was pretty much
right.
It's funny, man, like you're not to get off track, but I saw, and I didn't get a chance to go in on any of your other podcasts yet. No diss. It'll happen. I mean, I just got wind of them like a couple days ago. So, I mean, it's not like
you got time.
It's not like I've been knowing about it and avoiding it.
Right.
But I saw you interviewed Todd P.
I did,
which gets me really psyched. We only ever worked with Todd P. I think maybe the one show we did, which I think you were integral in somehow with Blowfly.
Yeah,
which was that,
and I think Prince Paul too.
Yeah, Prince Paul was in the house, dude. Yeah, that was
in Greenpoint. Yeah, it was that place that doesn't exist anymore, but that was an epic Blowfly performance. I remember that. I forgot about it until you mentioned that.
That was an amazing night on a lot of levels. I remember not being real psyched on our set, but it doesn't matter because that whole night was just so fire. But Todd P, at the time, his website was 100% HTML. There was nothing, and that got me so psyched because that was always our steez.
Yeah, I love those too, man. Yeah, it's just text and that's it.
That's it, man. I mean, I guess just kind of a very brief sequence of events in the course of about a year that sort of went from us just being a local band to being a national act. As best as I can recall, the little domino effect paid a shitload of money to go play at this thing called the Philadelphia Music Conference. We paid money to attend.
Right.
We supposedly got selected to play. Us and every other dickhead who mailed them a cassette, I think. But even still, met a cat there who managed this band called Sev, S-E-V. It's a rap metal band from outside of D.C., Fairfax, I think. Did a couple shows with them. Through them, linked up with this band who are still good friends today. They're not active as a band, but led to some tight friendships that are still going on today. This band called Geppetto from Annapolis. Yeah. Linked up with them, traded shows with them. That led to us linking up. Adam Wheatley was the fella, and I felt like I kind of shit the bed by not giving him dap in the memoir, or not the memoir, but the account on Heights podcast. Okay. He was a really badass dude, and he, for a brief period, we were kind of working with him as a booking agent. Okay. He was trying to get his hustle going. He managed Geppetto, and Geppetto was really doing huge things in their area. Like, they were crushing it. Like, every time they played a local show, it was like a national act was in town, which is it's not an easy feat.
Like for Baltimore or Annapolis?
Annapolis. And they did pretty well in Baltimore, too. But that was a wild time. I remember, like, doing I'll get to that in a second. But that led to us linking up with this band from Florida. And I don't remember how they had connected, how Adam had connected with this band from Florida, this band from Jacksonville called... Well, they weren't really from Jacksonville. They were from New Smyrna Beach and areas kind of scattered about. They were sort of talked about as a Jacksonville band, but now that I'm talking about it, they weren't really. But this band called the Nature Kids was ridiculously dope. I was thinking today I need to burn you some of their shit. So good. Also, all three of these bands, Sev, Geppetto, Nature Kids, would kind of fall under what was very kind of mainstreamy at the time, the quote unquote, rap rock hybrid. Right. And this is no diss to Geppetto because I love those dudes, but Nature Kids did this shit on an entirely different level. It was like bona fide craftsmanship level rhymes, just sick rhymes over these rock guitars. And
with a band or over
live band. Cool. Incredible live show. Winter of 2000 we ended up doing. It was kind of we had done some touring with Height. So I'm fucking up these dates, man. It was winter of 2001. We had done some touring fall of 2000 with Height. Got our feet wet a little bit. But the first kind of legit where there was a show booked every night for 3 weeks or something was with the Nature Kids. And we basically went down to Orlando, did a week's worth of shows in Florida, then kind of worked our way up the East Coast. Last show we played was in Brooklyn, actually, but I mean, this was before we had linked up.
You remember where?
I don't remember the name of the venue. See, that I have
been a lot of turnover over the years too.
Yeah, but like that's one where I have that written down somewhere.
Yeah, right.
But I need to dig in and find it. But that was that kind of, at that point, I sort of felt like as an act we had evolved. We spent a few years doing a lot of shows with a lot of people who, if they could have gotten away with it, would have murdered us. Right. In and around Pittsburgh, and then that, like, linking up with the Nature Kids, they were already these white yos spitting these complex rhymes, surprisingly very well received in the arguably not so acculturated Florida, you know what I mean?
Which impressively, like, you guys later would go there and really pound that state down as far as touring. Like, that was I always remember that, how you would go back. You did Florida hard.
We took hold there. It is wild to think about now, but we really took hold there, and that is odds are that never would have happened had we not linked up with the Nature Kids.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any way that Eric Andre could have seen you guys play and somehow was inadvertently, like, inspired by this kind of irreverent performance type shit, because obviously what he's doing now is huge and very popular and successful, but it is like in line with a lot of the kind of stuff from your live show. Not to say it's like I'm not claiming he borrowed anything, but I mean it's in that world, I feel like, and he lived there during that time growing up.
It's totally possible, and I would be curious to know the answer to that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not going to stress it.
Yeah. There's something about it when I watch his stuff, and like even like Tim and Eric, whom I'm a huge fan of both of their material. I love that stuff the same way I love like watching you guys play and listen to the songs. There's a certain kind of just like the level of satire and parody is so rich that it's hard not to like, think it's fucking hilarious, and brilliant. And but you guys were of an era that was just a couple of years before both of those things kind of came about in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I remember building with Jackson about this years ago. I mean, and his take on it was kind of like, we put that energy into the ether,
right?
So
right.
like cosmically or on a quantum physics level, we influence these people, whether they ever saw us or not. I'm pretty sure I didn't say it out loud, but I was thinking at the time, shut up, you fucking hippie. I didn't say it out loud. But no, I mean, I'd say it's definitely possible.
Oh, while you were saying that?
Yeah, while
Yes.
Jackson was saying that, I was thinking,
right.
I'm trying to be funny.
Yes, of course.
It's not an actual Jackson diss. That
Right.
was just an attempt at humor.
He is a fucking hippie, though.
Totally.
He's
dude.
turned into one.
Patchouli stinking motherfucker. But I don't know, man. The thing is, we did do so many shows, and it's like, we very much from scratch, like the following we established, though it was not massive in number of people, it was pretty far reaching in terms of like geography, and that was solely that was from our live shows. That was from going balls to the wall. And I definitely know we blew some minds, so I'd like to think I'm not going to name any names. I know a lot of music that came from people who we inspired really grates on me. Like I know we inspired some people to go out and make some real stinky shit, but it's still cool. Like it's all good. I don't like, I'm hoping we inspired some people who went on to make some really dope shit.
Right, and you were of like a kind. Gradually you would find like-minded people even back then, 2000, 2001, and so on, like Geppetto and stuff. That there was like a kind of circuit. It's just during that time too. It was a little trickier to connect with all these artists, where you would have to kind of physically be in their city and do a show with them to be aware of them. Even like a Neil Hamburger is like in that same, coming up during that same period of time. And
totally.
It's like, influential in that same way.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was, it gets me super psyched just kind of looking back on that time, just because of the level of like grind that was required.
Yeah.
That I do think in some cases, the cream of the crop rose to the top because it had to. It was really only the cats that put in the work.
Yes.
That got to get the show in the other city, or got to like talk to the booking agent. You know what I mean? It was
because eventually you booked your first couple of tours though, right? Like when you did Wesley, you didn't have a booking agent or anything like that, right?
No, but when we did Wesley, that Wesley was already booked by Eric Carter, who at the time was Cork
Agency.
So that was really we had kind of a falling out with Wesley's manager, and I've never gone on the record dissing the dude. I don't intend to. Will say I'm totally cool with never crossing paths with him again as long as I live. But at the same time, we are indebted to that dude.
Right.
That we just are, because that, like Wesley liked us, but his manager was the dude that put us on those shows. And that was just, that was a real live rock and roll or rap, whatever, fantasy come true. It was just like,
right.
Been fighting tooth and nail to string together gigs here and there, and then it's like, here's 60 dates. You're on all of them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, like you'll have a hotel every night. It was like, holy shit, just like.
Then you can expend that energy towards the actual performance and stuff too.
Totally. Yeah, that was Yeah, that was some magical shit. It's when I think about like Geppetto, Nature Kids. It's like those dudes, like we definitely, and there were some local Pittsburgh bands too. Like, I don't know. Someday I'll write an essay or I'll do something where I feel like I finally give like a heartfelt like salute to all the bands that put us on, because like there were a lot of bands that put us on that I kind of felt like. And I guess by put us on, I mean hooked us up with a show. Right.
But I mean, you obviously played with all types of genres of music in Pittsburgh too.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could get like 2 screenplays and a fucking novel just out of the couple years only playing Pittsburgh.
Wow.
With so much wild shit that went down. But like, that we always tried to come through and like tried to reciprocate. But the thing was, at this time, this like 99, 2000, we were not drawing shit in our hometown. Whereas it's like, say Geppetto, for example, they'd headline a show in Annapolis, there'd be 200 kids there losing their minds. Wow. And they could have us come as the opener. It was just like welcomed with open arms into like this really popping scene. We'd return fire with a show for them, and it would be like, my parents and like Jackson's dad and like the bartender. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, so it was just kind of this lopsided thing. And then very quickly, we ended up later, 2001, we just very quickly became like a national touring act, and all of a sudden like it was our job to get on the road and tour. So I kind of feel like we never got to fully, be like, thanks for hooking us up. Here is the Pittsburgh show in front of 500 people with $1,000 guarantee. Right. Like we just we didn't get to make some of those, like, I mean, we always tried to pay shit forward, hook up other cats who were on the come up, but
then there was an era too where you guys came back after a couple of years of touring in Pittsburgh. Then you were like playing the support to some of these big, kind of this weird range of artists, right? Like,
well, yeah, that was that shit was kind of wild. I mean, we were able to hit it out of the park touring with Wesley Willis, and I could talk for 50 hours straight just about that man, about what an amazing, magical motherfucker he was. But he died in 2003, very suddenly, right. And it was just like, I mean, that was another thing where it's like we never got to really thank Wesley,
Really?
Yeah. But
so was just the 4 of you guys on the tour, just him, his manager, and you two? I know you did a couple tours, but
did a couple tours in 2001. All right, I'm getting the years straight now. In 2001, we did, like, I want to say 5 or 6 weeks with him, and it was one tour, but it was split up into 2 legs.
Right.
And the first leg, it was us, this band called the Shazam, who were fucking awesome. I don't know if they're still in the game. I hope they are. They were really awesome. And Wesley, and they were a 3-piece, but we were all in separate vehicles. And this cat named Paris, this cat from Chicago, was tour managing. Then September 11th happened. For an instant, the tour was canceled. Then all of a sudden, overnight, it was like back on. But I don't have the scoop. But somehow, that cat Paris, who was supposed to tour manage, and that band, the Shazam, having something to do with 9/11, were not going to be on the second leg of the tour. So that ended up being just your boy Grunge, Jackson, and Wesley.
And that's it.
That's it. In my Astro van for a month. And that was pretty fucking wild. And I got fucking pneumonia. And Jackson. So there was a period of, I think, a week, maybe 6 days, where it was just Jackson and Wesley.
Holy shit!
Which it makes my heart warm when I think about that. Because it was like we thought we were gonna have to cancel the tour, and it's like Jackson just manned the fuck up and was like, "No, I'm good." Like,
so he held it down. He did the Grand Buffet show, and then tour managed Wesley, and settled and drove and all that stuff.
Held it the fuck down.
Dope.
Like, I should have used that to be like, all right, Jack, from here on out, man, it's on you. But and then I met back up with them at the Pittsburgh show, and I got back on the mic. It's pretty wild. But so based on the strength of that, and then a tour with our good homie Sage Francis, also one of my best homies to this day. At that point, we ended up we had a booking agent, you know, and we strung the next couple of years. We just strung together shows. You know, our homie Soul put us on.
Yeah, Anticon, I feel like most of the guys in there were really embraced the group too. There was a bit of a split two ways, right?
There was some hate in there, and I never got to the bottom of it. I mean, some fucked up shit happened where we were supposed to do a record on Anticon. Walked away from a deal with Epitaph because we had already agreed to do a deal with Anticon.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit of a stretch. Epitaph didn't put a contract on the table, but they were interested. They did a ticket buy and all this shit, and we very politely were like, we love what you guys do. Keep it up, but we're rolling with our homies. And then, like, a couple months later, call from Soul, like, oh, we can't put the record out now, I'm sorry. And it was just, I mean, it's not cool, you know, it's not cool. It's not some shit that I'm bitter about at all. Like, I would say I was if I was, but it was shitty, you know, it was a shitty thing. Right. It's like, I'm sure I don't know, hopefully not, but it's like you have a homie, you find out, like, I don't know, maybe he blazed with like a chick that you had broken up with, but never really quite got over. It doesn't mean you hate him. Yeah, doesn't mean you can't be boys, but it wasn't cool. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's kind of how I feel about it. But it does puzzle me a little bit if I stop and think about it, which doesn't happen very often. But it's like, which one of those cats wasn't down? Was it Passage? Was it Dose? Like, I don't know, because they all...
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no, that was rhetorical. I wasn't. Right. But it's kind of like, that's really weird, man. I wonder which one of those motherfuckers wasn't down. It's probably why.
You never know. Yeah, I mean, so I would love to talk about too this period of time when you did those 3 kind of mini albums back to back, because that was also felt like a very prolific time of you guys as like in the studio too, when you were sort of coming into your own, like as far as like pushing shit creatively, and like you found, I feel like you like your style of production like matured too, because you did all the production on all the songs, right?
Well, for the most part, like it, Jackson started to contribute more, like the actual like music production.
Oh, cool.
But it was like, I guess I kind of had final cut as a producer. But like he would start to like fuck around with the beats, or like he would record a synth line, lace me with it, and then I would build it.
Did you record like in your house or something like that? Like,
yeah. Like we both at that time both still lived. I lived with my parents. Jackson lived with his mom, and we had the little studio set up in my bedroom, my folks' house, and that's we recorded 2 out of 3 of the EPs there.
So there was Undercover Angels, Cigarette Beach,
and then Pittsburgh Hearts.
That was the last one, Pittsburgh Hearts.
Yeah, right. Pittsburgh Hearts we recorded when we were big boys, and we had our own place in the city. We had you know, grown up a little bit.
So when I came out here with Z-Man, when we played this kind of crazy theater show, Brewhouse, with Skell.
Yeah, those are some longtime homies, man. That's jumping back to that period before we ever hit the road. One of the bands, not the front man, lead guitarist, but basically the band leader, this fella Mikey Pallone. Still one of my best friends, actually the godfather of my daughter.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so
awesome.
I'm not fucking around when I say he's my Relly, as Z-Man would say.
Yes.
But they were in this band called Whiskey High, and they were a hard rock band with, you know, hard rock metal undertones. Awesome band, awesome fucking band, and completely the last fucking band in the county that I ever thought would have been psyched on Grand Buffet.
Really?
To the point, it's like, and they had established themselves in Pittsburgh in a way that was really legit. You know, and they were a band that kind of got, which we were in a completely different way and for completely different reasons, but they were a band that, like, the scene kind of clowned them because they were what haters would call a hair metal band. You know what I mean?
Right.
The cats, they came up on that shit, and that was their style. A couple of them had big flowing manes of hair. To me, that never undermined the legitimacy of the music or anything like that.
Sure, and they took it seriously. Yeah, the music.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't being cheeky. That was their shit. You know.
Yeah, you got to respect someone that just, they don't give a fuck what other people think about them, regardless of the genre they're playing. They're just doing them and.
Absolutely. I mean, and that, you know, the mid 90s, it was like so many cats who would have very short time before, waited in line for an hour to like lick the balls of like Stephen Piercy or something. Like then all of a sudden we're like too cool for that shit, and it was all about indie rock. And so people fake the funk, but these cats didn't. They were as real as they come, and they used to kill it. When they played Pittsburgh, it was a big deal. And it is kind of a long story. The short version is like we met them through a studio where we recorded a bunch of demo stuff that they rehearsed there, and they were kind of co-owners of it. So it kind of went from them being like sort of like, oh, look at these cute little young fellas rapping, it's kind of cute, right. And like, oh, these guys are kind of cool. Then evolved to like them having us open up for them. And
so way back in the day, we're talking like 97, 98. Some of our first shows, like. So what is this? You're playing like roadhouses and shit, saloons?
Yeah. There's a place called Whiskey Dick's Saloon, which is gone now. But it was right. It was in the Strip District, so in the city proper. But it was very much like it was set up like a fucking like Bob's Country Bunker, basically, from the Blues Brothers.
Right. How was the reception for you guys there?
Completely fucked. But it didn't matter because like we were there as guests of Whiskey High. So, like, people kind of knew not to fuck with us. And, like, the one dude who did, I'm not saying, like, he got, like, rushed in the parking lot. No, that didn't happen. But people told him to shut the fuck up, which is pretty cool.
Wow, yeah.
You know what I mean?
They had your back.
Yeah. It's like, they're like, wait, we hate them too, but don't fuck with them because they're friends with Whiskey High, asshole. Like, it was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they fucking suck, but be cool. So it was tight, and then we just stayed in touch. Like they had members change, kind of became a different band. They had some members swap, they became Skell, and Skell's actually still holding it down.
They're still playing.
They are, man. It's real fucked up.
Nice.
The one cat who was not playing with them when you and Zaman were in the house, but who had joined shortly after. My homie Keith, he actually passed away very recently, which is real
sorry
fucked
to hear
up.
that.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. He was a good egg. He was a really good egg. But they're keeping it moving,
That's amazing, and just to be continuing playing like within this like lineage of like Pittsburgh bands too is pretty cool. It's very respectable.
It's super cool, man. I gotta tell you, not to go off on a huge tangent,
that's fine.
But a couple weeks ago, Jackal was in town. I don't know if you recall Jackal, but
yeah, I do. I'm trying to remember a song. I don't know if I can pull a song out of my head right now.
Dude with the chainsaw.
Yeah.
Lumberjack.
Yeah.
He played the chainsaw. Anyway, they're a favorite band of mine. And they're still touring. They're still doing it big. But so they were in town a couple weeks ago. I got permission from my lady to sneak out, go see Jackal. And I had my man Mikey from Skell Whiskey High, godfather of my daughter, come with me. And he's not a huge Jackal fan. He dug the show, but he's more Slayer, Pantera. That's more his shit, a little heavier stuff. But like, it was so wild, man. We went to it's this pretty new, couple years old, big ass, big money spot, way up in fucking Cranberry, which is like really far flung suburbs. It's almost not even the suburbs anymore. It's way out there. And it was so wild, man. People coming out of the woodwork to give him dap.
Really?
Not because they knew him, but because they either saw Whiskey High or they saw Skell play at some point.
Wow.
And it was like a fucking celebrity sighting for them.
No way.
Which was super cool. And my man is very humble. Like, to him,
sure.
Like, he would never... But it was, as a fan of his, and as, a dude I consider a dear friend, it got me like, I was real fired
That's
up.
what's up.
Because Pittsburgh can be cruel, man. Like, I love this city to death, but there are a lot of haters here. There's a lot of crab motherfuckers,
I've been trying to, I've been here for now like a little over a week, and I've been trying to, it's not like that I've been going out to shows, but I mean, there's something about Pittsburgh, and I've come here and I booked a lot of shows here, shows with Manny, shows with different kinds of promoters and stuff like that. But I want to get a better read of like the local scene with bands and just like the history of it. Not that I'm asking you to tell me like to break it all down for me, but there is something very kind of unique about Pittsburgh too. And I talked about this with Jackson too, and he had an interesting interpretation of it. But because there's not like a ton of groups contemporary artists that came out of Pittsburgh too, like on a national level.
Wiz.
Wiz Khalifa, of course, Mac Miller, and Girl Talk.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Wait, who?
And with those guys, Wiz you never did any shows with him, did you?
We did one show with Wiz.
Oh, really?
And Girl Talk. Girl Talk, it was after Girl Talk had like very rapidly just popped into this massive draw.
Right.
He did. It was actually really awesome. It was something, that I feel like it was very similar to what we did over the years. We just did it on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
But he did like a giant 3,000 capacity venue, just all Pittsburgh acts who he dug.
Dope.
So GB was on the bill. The legendary Don Caballero.
Yes, Don Caballero. Yes.
They were on the bill.
Oh, dope. Yes.
There was one band, I don't want to diss, but there was one band that was kind of a plant. I don't know, it was like a favor to the promoter or some shit. But other than that, it was like a very like earnest, like these are all bands he digs and he's putting on a fucking gala. Like it was a big ass venue. The venues had like 30 different names, but it's
not
like
Stage AE.
No, this is, I think this was even before Stage AE opened their doors. This was like 08 or 09.
Oh, okay. I think I saw you guys play Mr. Smalls one time too. You must have played there before. In your day. Obviously, yes.
Yeah, we actually never headlined a show there.
Right. Interesting.
We did shows. We did a show with Don Cab there, and we did a show with Girl Talk there.
Oh, dope.
But so Girl Talk did this big ass gala. Modi Lemon was in the house. They were on the show. And
cool.
And Wiz was on the show, and it was really like a month later. He was like in a movie with Snoop. Like it was just rapid, just how the dude shot to stardom. But it's cool though.
Yeah. I mean, I dig it. I like anything that comes out, any music that comes out of Pittsburgh and breaks on the national level. I think obviously they had to put their work in to make it happen. I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
No,
I can't front like I'm a super fan. I don't own the albums, but I'm definitely not a hater by any stretch. Like much respect.
And I met him one time in a club in LA, and he was actually very, very, very cool.
He seemed like a very cool cat. I, just met him real briefly in passing, but good-hearted dude, talented dude.
Sure,
very talented dude.
Yeah, for what he does, he's got it on lock.
Yeah,
he's got it. He figured it out.
Yeah.
And Mac Miller, I mean, both of those guys, like they got their lane and they do it well.
Totally, Yeah, no, I'm not a hater, not even a little bit.
Right.
It's all the continued success.
Right, right, for sure. Were you involved in the Pittsburgh Batman thing?
Yeah, are you being cheeky?
No, not at all, because I'm not hip to it at all.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like, oh my God, how could you not have heard of it? It's just funny that it didn't come up in conversation with Jackson.
Not just on a surface level. So I wanted to save the real description talk with you. I don't really know what exactly it was. I just know it's something that was another Grand Buffet related project, but it wasn't in an album. It wasn't something that, unless you were in Pittsburgh, you didn't know about it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I think it's very like Pittsburgh based. I think, like, I'm psyched about it, I'm very proud of it, but at the same time I'd be very surprised if cats from outside the burg really fucked with it, just because it's so many references and stuff are local.
So what is that?
It was a play that I wrote and then I went on to like produce, direct, star in. It was based on it's a spoof. It's a superhero spoof, Batman spoof. It's basically imagining if Batman was from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Like that's basically what it is. But it stemmed from a bunch of ideas that going back probably 12 or 13, who knows how long, a decade or more, just ideas from the inside of the van being on tour.
Sure.
And just Jackson just came with this really funny version of Andy Warhol. And it was kind of this whole thing like, well, what if you go to the Warhol Museum and ask if you could speak to Andy Warhol? That's all it would take, that he come downstairs and be like, what the fuck do you want? Like, I'm busy. I'm up there working on my drawings and it was really, really tickled me. And then, really funny. So that was kind of like an idea from Jackson. And then another band who hasn't been mentioned yet because we jumped ahead about 8 years. But Gil Manterra's Party Dream.
Yes, of course.
Huge piece of the Grand Buffet story arc.
So just to take a quick sec, I mean, for people that might not be familiar with them, because they're also pretty much inactive at this point in time, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
So they're not from Pittsburgh, but they're definitely close to Pittsburgh. Right?
Yeah, from Youngstown, Ohio, which is about, 45, 50 miles from Pittsburgh.
Super close.
Very close. And just two brothers, Youngstown fellas, formed one of my all-time favorite bands.
I mean, there's I can't really think of anything totally comparable to them. They're also a duo like Grand Buffet, so there is a certain kind of kinship there. I mean, you obviously did tours and many shows with them. Yeah,
quite a few. It's funny that relationship stemmed from the tour with Wesley Willis all the way back in fall of 2001. The second show after I got back from the hospital, basically, was Youngstown. And GB had played there once.
What is playing a show in Youngstown like? I've never been there before.
It's very different now, man. It's very different. At the time, Youngstown's still raw and it's still rowdy. But at the time, it was even more so than the Berg at the time. It was on some Wild West shit. Like, it was just raw. It was like a raw...
It's a small city, right?
It is. But it's a city. Like, it's a legit little downtown with, like, tall-ass buildings and shit.
Okay.
You would need to ask someone from Youngstown, but there's a lot of mob history there. Like
that makes sense.
It was the gateway between the fellas in the East Coast and the fellas in Chicago. Like it was some kind of hub, and there were still little remnants of that even as recently as like the early 2000s. But it's a fascinating place, man. It, like everywhere, I guess, has changed a lot. A lot of weird gentrification and just weird bullshit. But the show we played with Wesley Willis was at one of my all-time favorite venues in the world was the Nyabingi in Youngstown. The guy who owned it also ran sound there. This guy, Greg Barrett, real tough customer. Very cool dude, very smart dude, but had been around the block, was a pop culture, like, aficionado, had seen 1,000 bands, very hard to impress,
Well, not every band can go to Youngstown, too.
Well, there's that, but I mean, but he had traveled. It wasn't like he had just seen every band that ever came to Youngstown. Like he knew his shit. Right. He was like yourself, just a head, like a music head, like a film head, like that kind of dude. But it's like he ran this very rowdy bar in Youngstown, so he also was like he was a tough dude, like on a very like basic, just like he was tough.
Right.
Like he wasn't like jacked, but he just looked like he could probably kill you, if you pissed him off. So I remember at that time I had resumed my duties as tour manager for Wesley. At this time it was just me, Jack, and Wesley in the van. And like I'd never been to this venue before. Talking to this guy, going through what we need for the sound check, what we need for the rider, all this stuff, and like, I'm paying for my cocktails, and he's kind of asked like, what the fuck, Grand Buffet, like, what the fuck are you guys about? So I was like, man, kind of like we rap, but we like to think it, and I could just see lost interest just right there, fucking just lost interest. And after the set, he kind of like. And this dude was an awesome sound man, and the Nyabingi did very much like hole in the wall dive bar.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, smoky, like it had existed previously. He ran it in Morgantown,
West Virginia.
Yeah,
okay.
And then he picked up and transplanted it to Youngstown.
Two very interesting markets.
For
a venue.
Totally.
But was it like? Oh no, please go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, but like the sound there was awesome, and like this dude, he did all the sound, he wired the PA, and just like the sound was fucking phenomenal. So like he didn't chintz on us, even though he wasn't sure whether or not he was down. He still gave us he juiced us that night. And after the set, he was kind of acting a little bit more friendly toward me. And then like after like a half hour of kind of talking about like the set, it's like all the drinks were on the house, and like and he couldn't wait to have us back. And there was a band from Youngstown that we had to play with. This band, Gil Mantero's Party Dream.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and that led to, I mean, yeah, those guys, well, one of them still to this day consider one of my best homies. But that led to just so much. Like that, GB and the Party Dream, that could be a book, or that,
for sure. I mean, and they played that fateful show in Pittsburgh that me and Z-Man played on.
Yeah.
The Skell.
Yes. Yeah. There's all the roads kind of.
When Jackson came out with the nacho cheese and the crucifixes and was like dipping them in nacho cheese and like licking them, and throwing them into the crowd. I mean, so what's up with them? They don't play shows no more? Or?
No, man. There is a documentary in production about Gil Mantero's Party Dream, and I hope it sees the light of day because they're an awesome band, and I'd like them. I would think that maybe if the documentary was well received, if it got people talking about them again, maybe that could lead to a reunion or something. I would hope. But I mean, the short version, they had a falling out,
But aren't they? They're brothers.
They're brothers,
too.
yeah.
Dang, that sucks.
It is. It's kind of harsh. But I think they may have actually reconnected recently, which is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means they're going to be a band again, but I think that they're, because they didn't talk for like 6 years or something. Really.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. It was kind of maney. Another Z-Man reference.
Yeah.
I love Z-Man.
Yeah. You guys were great. A great pairing. Yeah, two just otherwise kind of indescribable groups in a way. That lived so close to one another. That obviously, partied together, and you guys there was a great deal of revelry, and shit.
Oh yeah. And like the full spectrum, like coming close to like fisticuffs a couple times, and then just and sobbing and hugging each other. Wow. Not Jackson. That was all me. All that bullshit, all that drunk bullshit. That was all me. Me and Richie from the Party Dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome band. They were. I mean, we played with a lot of amazing bands, but just there weren't that many bands we played with where we got to see them like 50 or 60 times. You know what I mean? They may have been. I never got tired of watching those dudes. Not once.
They're hilarious.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like, oh, these are my boys. No, it wasn't that. I was genuinely fucking entertained every time I watched them.
How would you describe them genre-wise? Because there's, if people, since it's been a while since they put a record out, obviously, or toured, so there might be people that are listening here right now that have no clue what they are, and there's not a great document of them because they're also from sort of a lost era too, in a way, like
pre-YouTube culture.
Where it's like maybe their MySpace page might still exist.
Right.
Like it's like sort of like this kind of. I don't know if new wave is even close to it, but like...
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like to try to keep descriptions kind of vague.
Right, of course. And I don't mean to put you in the corner to try to do that.
Not at all, my dude. But, they're a pop band. They made pop music, like pop/dance music. And their later albums were very well crafted, a lot of like Giorgio Moroder influence.
Definitely.
Really just sonically beautiful albums. Like their older stuff was fun, but it wasn't of that caliber. But, like GB, they had a live show, which was just like, it was, they managed to kind of bottle chaos amidst music that was legitimately good. I mean, that was the thing. It's like, people can say what they want about either group, but like I always felt like at the end of the day, I thought GB had some pretty solid tracks. There was always a fine line. Let this asshole drive past. There is always a fine line between like what the late Wesley Willis would say. Like he never wanted people to sideshow him. Like he loved it when people came out and watched him play, but he could tell when people were pointing fingers and gawking.
Right.
And sadly, I mean, a lot of his fans were fucking pieces of shit.
I know, yeah, I bet. I can only imagine, too.
Yeah.
Even when you do so many shows with them, you probably see the full range of asshole that would
Totally. But with with both Grand Buffet and Party Dream, I always kind of felt like both groups kind of rode that line between like this isn't a band, this is just like a fucking, like, if anything, it's like really fucking just half-assed improv performance art.
Right.
like we kind of rode that line between being like some sideshow bullshit and being like some of the baddest shit you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And we kind of, you know, I won't speak for Party Dream. I mean, I know GB on our bad nights, you err on the wrong side, but like.
But then you guys I would notice, because I've seen you guys play a lot of times, and I would notice how you would, if the crowd wasn't particularly great or like engaging musically, how you would then lean on the improv side of doing crowd work and badgering the audience, fucking with the audience, insulting the audience, which probably in some cases could completely turn them back around, because they like that. And you guys have this certain dynamic as a duo where you kind of strike this imposing figure on stage. You're the big guy, and you point and look directly at people on stage, in the crowd and shit. I remember how funny it is because you would really make fun of people in the audience, and they would be disarmed immediately. And shit,
Yeah, and it's funny, man. I don't know. I guess since you hit me up, I've just been thinking a lot more about the history of GB, and that was also kind of walking a delicate line. That is in some ways kind of playing with fire. I still stand by when it's in the context of art,
right?
It's all good.
Well, when you're on stage,
right? Right. I mean, in that, because there were a couple times where detractors after a show would be like whatever you guys are doing, man, it's fine, but you said some really ugly things, and it's all right, fair enough, but you don't have to like it, and bear in mind it was a fucking performance,
right?
It's
so I know we only talked about this for a second, but I'd love to get back to that Pittsburgh Batman thing.
Oh,
too.
Yeah, definitely.
That, because, people in Pittsburgh they got a total style onto themselves, the regional, dialect too, and everything. And just tangentially, I for the first time I saw that you did a music video for Cool as Hell, which I didn't realize. The funniest fucking thing about it, besides the kind of close-up shots of you, is that you're wearing a Flyers jacket.
What's even funnier is that video was shot in Baltimore.
Was it? Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought for sure it was shot in Pittsburgh.
Not shot in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's so funny, man. Because you wouldn't probably walk around. No one would be walking around with a fucking Philadelphia Flyers jacket in Pittsburgh, I would think.
I mean, I would do it to be subversive.
Of course.
I mean, I wouldn't be doing it with any kind of check me out. I'm doing me.
Right. No, I know, which is hilarious. So was the Pittsburgh Batman thing? Was it just did it just run for one night only, or was there a run of it? Or?
Yeah, we did 2 runs.
Cool.
I went off on a major tangent, but so the actual concept for Pittsburgh Batman was kind of something that Gil Mantera himself and I had kind of batted around as an idea. This is years and years ago, over a decade ago, and we were talking about trying to do a short film, and we have a Pittsburgh Batman, and then we have Jackson's depiction of Andy Warhol and all this funny shit, and in my mind it's just I don't. This would never work as a movie, but this could work as a play.
Right.
So I just banged out a play. And
was it a one act or something?
One act, about an hour long.
Wow.
And
cool.
And I was super psyched on it. Just didn't do a goddamn thing with it for 5 years. And then
after you wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were still at that time. GB was still active. We were still touring a lot and stuff. And then we kind of went on indefinite hiatus. And I'd been working at different day jobs and always still doing music, but music was no longer paying the bills really, and just decided, fuck it, let's try to put on this play. And Jackson was down, and Richie from Party Dream was on board, and it really came together beautifully. And
how was it received?
Really, really well, man.
Yeah?
And I knew it was going to be one extreme or the other. I knew this is, people will fucking love this, or it will be as atrocious an affront as, the Flyers jacket, or,
Right.
And,
right.
And for the people who saw it, there she is, she's good. We did 2 runs. In 2013, we did a run in a little black box theater. We did 3 nights, about 100 capacity, sold out all 3 nights. It was killer. A year later, ramped it up, did it at this spot called the Kelly Strayhorn Theater, which is this beautiful, just amazing theater, like this bona fide theater. They do all kinds of shit there. Very expensive. Put my balls on the line.
You had to rent it out?
Yeah.
Put the money down and everything?
Put the money down.
Wow. So you were the producer and everything, yeah.
Yeah, the first run, Jackson and I kind of did it as a team. We did a Grand Buffet show. Grand Buffet hadn't played in Pittsburgh in a while. Did a last minute show. Did really well, and we kind of used that to bankroll the play.
Cool.
Which was cool. Simple, but much bigger scope. I actually hit up my homie who owned Fighting Records. Mm-hmm. Little deal with him. Just basically front me the cash for the theater.
Right.
With interest. My man made a little profit. But it went great, man. We didn't sell out all 3 nights, which was a little bit of a bummer. But by the 3rd night, there was a groundswell, and we sold out the 3rd night, which was really fucking cool.
Right.
And I don't know, I'd say probably 50 people or more got turned away because there were no tickets.
So it took them a sec to catch on.
It took a sec. I feel like the first time we did it, it was very much a Grand Buffet thing, and it was largely Grand Buffet fans who came. The second time, that wasn't really I'm not saying Grand Buffet fans didn't come out, but like it didn't feel like a Grand Buffet production. It was like it had kind of taken on its own little, like, people knew about it, and it so it was great, man.
I'd love to see it, man. I wish I saw that live, dude.
I can get you a copy of it.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, because you're acting in it too, so it's probably not that different than like what a show would be, although it's it's not songs, but it's
there's a couple musical numbers in it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, not a musical though. Just it's a comedic play with like a couple musical jaunts thrown in there.
What was the main character's name? It's not just Batman, is it?
Pittsburgh Batman.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what about like just in Pennsylvania in general? I mean, like over the course of your guys' career as touring artists, did you make and do you feel like you made like an impression in the state too? There's something about the state as well. So I took the train here from New York. I took a one-way ticket from New York on the Amtrak. So I went from Philly all the way across.
That's the best way to see PA.
It was beautiful, actually. I really enjoyed it.
Like Pennsylvania 42 or 43 or something. It's like
I really like the state in general. There's a lot of little places, little towns and haunts and stuff. I've actually been wanting to go to Kecksburg because there was like a UFO that landed there in the 60s. And
snap.
I want to see this thing. Anyway, but like, obviously besides Philly, did you guys play like Wilkes-Barre and Scranton and Reading and these like little cities and little towns? Like,
not as much as I would have liked, man. Like we, coming up before all the touring, we would play anywhere we could get booked. And it's like, we played that aforementioned conference in Philly, which is our first out of town gig ever. But we played suburbs of Pittsburgh.
Sure.
And all the little boroughs that surround it and stuff. But we never really, Pennsylvania is like it's a weird kind of, there's a lot of really old, like even colonial energy and weird shit here, but it's cool. But we never did that well outside of Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. I mean, we had a couple decent, like, we had a couple good shows in Philly, but for us, a good show in Philly was like 40 people being really excited. So
Philly didn't even really totally get it either. Right?
Nah.
They're tough. That's a tough town to play for anybody. I feel like
Philly's real tough.
You can't play any night but Saturday. I feel like if you try to play on Monday or Tuesday or even a Wednesday in Philly, it's like you're going to get 40 tops.
Yeah, Philly's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of not too... I mean, I don't know if it's a great comparison, but it's like the way Twisted Sister kind of like did their thing in Long Island in New York and kind of came up as this local thing, but they never were giant outside of New York. But, I mean, they obviously built this whole thing up and then got signed. I don't know. There's just something... I don't know if you ever watched the documentary about their success. It's a good one.
I would love to see that. I'm a fan. I don't really know the details of their story.
Yeah, it's just a New York City band that came up playing the saloons and roadhouses of Long Island and like, you know, Connecticut and around upstate New York and not really focusing on Manhattan or New York City Central.
Right.
But so it kind of reminds me of how, like, you know, you have this intense history in Pittsburgh, but outside of it, it's because it is such a. It's funny. It's not necessarily like a Pittsburgh thing because when you go to California or or Florida or some of these places, I think you have these like really serious fans of Grand Buffet, you know, that have never been to Pittsburgh before, that don't really get maybe some of the humor that comes from the city too, that like is in your music.
Yeah. I mean, that's
is that like a fair assessment or
no? I think that's dead nuts on. I think that is right on. I mean, and that, you know, and that shit always got me, still to this day gets me super duper psyched. I don't know, there was a video floating around the internet. I think these were Cali kids, but like young ass kids, like they look like high school kids, covering Benjamin Franklin music.
Really?
With a live band.
Whoa.
Like in a garage and like murdering it. Like they must have transcribed like every lyric and it was so fucking cool. And they finished the song and they were just like, that was sick. Like, yeah, that was sick. It's like, that shit's pretty wild.
Do you think that's probably become like your guys' most beloved song by the fans? Something about that song, Benjamin Franklin music. I remember when I heard it for the first time and having already the perspective of all the material that came from it, because basically, you know, it was all after the EPs and after the debut album and stuff like that, right? It was no, which record was on?
It was
Undercover?
on Pittsburgh Hearts.
Right, so the last of the 3 EPs. Yeah. But that's got to be the one where people, I would think, at this point in time, not knowing, you know, when the last time you guys did a show was, but you must close with that thing now at this point in time, right?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because like so many shows we did were other bands' shows, you know, right. So we would kind of
oh, right. So you didn't have like a long set.
We play a lot of short sets. I mean, we always dug short sets, not out of laziness, just it's an aesthetic thing. Like a lot of times short sets are, I think, more impactful than
sure.
They can be if they're done right, but we used to fuck around a little bit, you know, like a chunk of shows we did with Montreal, amazing band, also
yes.
band we're greatly indebted to. But we opened and closed the set with Benjamin Franklin music.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, yeah, that's one of my personal favorite tracks.
What was it like making that? How did you guys come about making that song?
That was a true collaboration. It's like Jackson had bits and pieces of the verse down, and he basically just recorded some synth riffs that are the foundation of the song, and he kind of gave them to me, and we that was one of the this is a whole other tangent I don't want to go too deeply into, but
okay, no problem.
We, you know, Jackson and I love each other like family, but like a lot of times just us sitting in a room trying to write music together just did not go smoothly.
Really?
We'd take a step back and work on shit independently.
Right.
And then reconvene. That toward the last album we put out, that was the only way that we did. So it was the only way we could do stuff.
So workshop it sort of individually, and then when it's time to put vocals on it, then
it's not like we couldn't be in the same room when it was time to record. But as far as like trying to write stuff, it just became more of a, you know, you fuck with shit, I'll fuck with shit. We'll check in with each other and kind of keep piecemealing stuff. And that's, you know, if the end result's good, that's fine. But Benjamin Franklin music, you know, we sat in a room and like busted it out, you know, like fucked around with melodies and like
I mean the chorus or the bridge or whatever it was is it's infectious, man.
Respect. Yeah, that song was a true like collaboration. I mean, they were all collaborations, but that was, I feel, a much more like organic, kind of like that. We were both having a good day, and that was the result, you know.
Right. Yeah, I love that song. I mean, there's so many too, and I don't necessarily want to get deep into the minutia of the catalog, but there is something to be said just about the recorded material, because it is its own thing, you know. And it's funny, we were after I did the conversation with Jackson, we started talking about random stuff, and we started talking about Slaves with Spanky, which I think you later was a part of Shark Tank, right?
Yeah, Be Rich. That was his band.
I stayed with them in Kingston one time. They booked me for a show in Kingston, Ontario.
I remember putting you in touch with them.
Yeah, for Culturama. I played my Culturama videos.
Yep.
This was probably 2002 or 3.
Yeah.
And because I was on a little tour. It's crazy to think that I even toured with that thing now. I should have stuck with that shit.
You can always get back on the horse,
right.
man.
I think so. Maybe. We'll see. Now I got this thing. I got this podcast. Maybe.
Just saying, it's an option.
Right. And yeah, I stayed with them. But they, I remember they were definitely like, I think we bonded too because we were both big fans. But their group was, you know, obviously inspired by Grandma Faye style of like sensibility towards songwriting and shit.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like, this is not a diss at all, because like B Rich is one of my best friends, and like I have full respect for Slaves of Spanky, but to be completely honest, it's like the album they hit me off with whenever back in the day, just like, it was like, you know, it's tight, but it just didn't get me like super fired up. It's not a diss. It's just like,
no, I feel you. It's all good.
It didn't resonate with me in a way that was just like, it's like, oh, these are cool dudes, and I'm psyched that they're doing their thing, but like, you're probably not going to catch me in the whip like blasting this shit. And then B Rich, just like, before we got to a level of being like homeboys, he would pop up at shows. Like, Canadian dudes, I guess, just love to travel, and like they do it a lot. So he would pop up at he's from Kingston, which is outside of it's like, I guess, like between Toronto and
in Ottawa.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily like a suburb, I don't think, but it's a small city that's on that highway, I guess.
Yeah. Wait, is it Ottawa or is it between? Yeah, you're probably right.
I think so.
I've been there a bunch.
It's in Ontario.
It's definitely in Ontario.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's north of Toronto now.
Northeast, I think.
Yeah.
Is that toward Ottawa? I always
you would be driving. Say you were playing Montreal, and you were driving from Toronto to Montreal. You would pass through Kingston, then you'd pass through Ottawa, and then eventually you'd get to Montreal.
Okay, respect.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the story with Shark Tank though? Like that's a whole different project of yours.
A whole different thing.
You did a few albums, right?
Yeah. We actually have a new John dropping. Do you want me to hold this for a minute?
No.
All right. That's what's up.
And your lady gave me this delicious bowl of food, but I don't want to compromise the interview.
Let's keep it moving, man. Let's keep it moving. So B Rich had like it went like he would pop up in different spots. He popped up in fucking Vancouver. He popped up in San Diego. Like he popped up in the Berg. Like he was just the dude loved to travel. Like he worked hard doing like this construction and this painting and just and he would like save up his chips and he would travel. That is still what he does pretty much. Like he just got back from like fucking Bahamas or something.
Okay.
So he would just pop up at shows and he's just like get to meet him, get to talk to him. Oh, this dude's cool. Played with Slaves of Spanky, like, oh yeah, great guys. But then at one point, I mean, I'm not going to front, I don't remember the exact date or even the year, but at one point, B Rich hit me off with a CD that was his solo shit. It wasn't Slaves of Spanky, and it was like, wait a minute, like, I thought this dude was like a cool, just like a good time Charlie. Slaves of Spanky, they're like a fun party band. They drink a lot of beer, they smoke a lot of darts. Like, but no, like this dude's like fucking nice on the mic.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, like this dude's like fucking nice on the mic. So, I don't know, 2008, I want to say it was, Height and I just got psyched on like we should do a side project. Like we had collaborated, we had done songs together,
yeah,
a shitload of shows together.
Winterize the Game?
Yeah.
That was his album, Height's album, right?
Yeah, that was my I don't want to say
Is that your solo shit?
that was my little attempt at trying to get a label off the ground. That was the one official release I had.
What was the name of the label?
Grand Man.
Oh, yes.
I haven't hung that up in my mind. Like, that's
Cool.
still, I'd like to make that more of a thing someday. But so Height and I are like, we want to do a side project. We want it to be legit. You know, like, kind of on some, I don't know, maybe some Treacherous 3 or like, you know, we want a group. We want there to be a group. We want like
some hip hop shit in mind.
Yes. You know, a little more focused on coming rappy as opposed to just coming however the fuck. And it's sort of like, you know, Mickey Free, very talented Mick Free from Baltimore. It's like, yeah, well, it'd be me, be Hype, be Mick Free. It's like, we need someone else in the group. Hype was like, should we holler at Be Rich? And it was just like, yeah. And it's kind of, I'm sure Be Rich's account would probably be more accurate, but the way I recall it, it was basically like Height sent him an email and was just like, you're in a group now with Lord Grunge and me and our buddy Mickey. And he's kind of like, okay, tight. And it was like, like, can you come to Baltimore to like the album's kind of done. Could you come to Baltimore and just like finish the album? And it was kind of like,
wow,
all right, yeah, fuck yeah, bud. And like, that's pretty
that's
much
a great impression.
That's pretty much how it went down. Like, there were a couple, I don't know, a flight got canceled because of snow, but when all was said and done, Height and Mickey and I had kind of been chipping away on this album for about a year, and then B Rich just popped into the B for a few days and like finished and it was just like, it was awesome. You know, it was like tight. These are my boys, and we're vibing and we're fucking banging out tunes, and it's fucking fun as shit. And like,
so how many projects has it been now? How many records has it been that you guys are doing?
3 albums.
Okay, cool.
Have a 4th one dropping this summer.
Yes.
It's fucked up because the group was conceived in 2008. The members were assigned their duties, and most of the album was recorded in 2008 and in 2009. We didn't drop the album until 2011 for whatever reason. Yo's been busy. But it's like by then the goddamn TV show was a thing. So it's like, it's impossible now to explain.
What TV show?
Shark Tank.
Oh, yeah.
It's impossible now to explain to cats, like, no, you don't understand. Like, we were already a group. It's like, well, yeah, but your album came out like 2 years after the show premiered. It's like, no, but you don't understand. We were already. So I don't know, man. And I mean, it's not like we're being hit with the cease and desist. It's just kind of like, I feel like it's almost like if you put a band together now and we're like, you know, we got this tight new group, we got the jump off, we're called Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just stuck in this fucking limbo where it's like, we're not big up in the goddamn show. Like, I don't give a fuck about it.
Well, people
love the show, and it's all good, but like, I don't. And it's just, it's in everyone in the past, like, I don't know, 3 years I've hipped to the group. It's like, oh, wait, isn't that a TV show? And it's just like, well, yeah, god damn it. But, so I don't know, man. I almost feel like, I'm psyched that it's still a thing, that we have 3 albums, all of which I'm very psyched on. And the Be Rich track, the second album, the last track was a little bonus track, and it was Be Rich doing this kind of, I don't know if you heard it, this Out for a Rip. This is him big up in Canada, doing it in like a Canadian accent, real thick and all this shit.
Okay.
That one song, I don't know if it went the Canadian version of either gold or platinum.
Really?
That one song sold like something retarded, like 90,000 fucking MP3s or however they do it up in the Great White North.
Right. Huh. Okay.
Yeah,
and you were on it.
Well, I produced it. I'm not on it. That's the one song on the album that I'm not on, pretty much. So I kind of like, fuck. But
you produced it. That's great.
Yeah. It's been fire. And
have you seen some residuals?
Yeah, which is tight. I mean, B Rich is definitely was able to kind of parlay that into the solo career in Canada, which is
really
fire. Yeah, I mean, I believe he's still holding down the day job. You know, it's not like he's just like backstroking in the mountain of cocaine type situation, but like he's right. I mean, he hits the road and like cats come out to see him, and yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that track just became like a cultural phenomenon.
That's what's up.
Crazy, barren ass country.
What's up with these lawnmowers? That's a phenomenon in this town, man. Because I just mowed my girlfriend's mother's lawn with that same one. And then I drove here and I saw someone have that. Does everyone has push lawnmowers in Pittsburgh? What's up?
I'll tell you that hearing about that one makes it a total of 2 that I know of.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
No, we just went old school. We've been stressing I mean, I love a good gas-powered mower, but we don't have a lot of gas, man.
Right.
You know, we're up in the cut.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go old school.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, cool. I was just staring at that for a second and I realized. So then what, I mean, you know, circling back to Grand Buffet, I mean, you obviously have like a newborn child, a beautiful baby girl, and a demanding job. So really quickly, so people know, like, I don't know if you want to talk about your work at all, but I mean, you want to acknowledge it? Or?
Oh yeah. It's kind of a one-way street. Like, I feel like I can rep working in EMS as Lord Grunge, but I pretty much leave the Lord Grunge at the door when I'm doing my thing in EMS.
Sure. I would think that's probably the right move right there.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is no one gives a fuck at all. Like, I remember, I don't know, man, just a little anecdote, like walking into the station, you know, in the big bay with the ambulances parked, walking in. It's a couple younger women, paramedics just hanging out, chilling. It's like, oh, Jared, haven't seen you in a while. Like, what's going on? It's like, oh, you know, actually my band's playing a show. And it's like, they kind of look at each other and they kind of laugh and they're like, his band's playing a show. And like, that was it. That was the end of the conversation. There was no like, you have a band? Or like,
right,
where are you playing? No, just like, it was like, it was comparable to as if I had said like, well, I wore a diaper to work today and I just pooped in my pants. They would have gotten the exact same, like a really stupid, unfunny joke would have elicited the same response as my saying, like, just very earnestly, like, my band has a show. People just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, in that arena, someone's band is the last thing they care about.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck. And that's fine, man. That's fine. I'm not, like, that's totally cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, a job is a job, too. And
definitely.
Yeah. When was the last time you guys did a tour? It's been a while since. I know you've done a couple shows here and there sporadically, right?
Yeah, we did a tour in, I want to say, it's so insane that it will have been, I think, 4 years, but like 2000. Wait a minute, man. Now I'm getting my years muffed up again. It was either 2012 going into 13, or it was 13 going into 14.
So it's been long enough. Been a while.
It's been a while, and that was not a huge tour. We did it a little over 2 weeks with our homie Dan Deacon.
Oh, right.
And that was fire. Like, we'd known Dan for years, but we'd never really toured together. I don't know that we had ever actually even played a show together. But so that was fire. And that was kind of like, you know, it kind of seemed like. That was also on the eve of Pittsburgh Batman, the first run.
I see, yeah.
So it must have been 2012 going into 13. That's so fucking insane.
Yeah, because around like that period of time, you did like a succession of bigger tours, like supporting bigger acts, right?
Leading up to that, there was kind of a period of not shit happening.
And then was there a definitive agreement between the two, like, all right, we're gonna take a hiatus, we're gonna take a break, or we just shit happened?
It was never really sussed out. Like, I remember Jackson telling me he was gonna look into getting a day job, and I had kind of already been fucking with these day jobs. Nothing serious. Like, I was working as a bouncer for a minute.
Oh, were you?
Bouncer / doorman, and did little kind of diddly shit, but he basically said he was going to try to find a day job, and we didn't really discuss it any more than that. And that was pretty much just how it was left. And, you know, offers, for a while, a lot of offers came in, and we ended up not doing most of them, you know. It wasn't like the phone was ringing off the hook, but it was just, but it, you know, and that's the thing, and it's like, and I'm sure Jackson realizes this, but it's like the thing that I get a little vexed about sometimes is it's just like, the offers will eventually stop completely. You know what I mean? Like if you don't keep doing something.
Yeah, the pot has to be stirred occasionally.
Occasionally. You know,
even during a break. I mean, even if it's to do side projects or, you know.
Totally. And you know, the thing is, man, it's like, I mean, there are like hugely successful bands, and you have like when individual members try to set off, that sometimes it falls completely flat.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, you know, well, Grand Buffet definitely, I would say, I would give us Dapsay an important band. In terms of numbers, not a hugely successful band.
Yeah, but I think that
like,
I think the people that really care about this group the most are ambivalent to numbers. You know, like the ones that the group connects with the most aren't people that are. Yeah, it just doesn't register with them.
Definitely,
you know?
and that's I guess I'm just talking in terms of logistics,
right?
You know, where it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. I remember our homie BP Helium, who I don't think he's currently playing in Montreal. I'm actually not sure, but he was like a staple member of the group for a long time when they were like killing it. You know, 2000, I guess like 5, 6, they were just fucking popping.
Yeah.
You know, and they finished up this massive tour, this hugely successful tour, and then BP like booked a little solo run.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think I remember that.
Yeah, like not even, I don't know, a month after this giant successful tour, and it was like they played Pittsburgh, and it was like maybe 13, 14 people.
Wow.
And it's just like, motherfucker, it's like it's brutal, you know, it's brutal. And that's not a knock on my man Helium, but it's like that comes into mind is it's like he was in this band that was fire hot at the time. It's
right.
Like, and like he had, you know, he was like a seminal member of the band. He had fans. He had people checking for him. It wasn't just like he was this faceless dude with an axe. Like, and even still, it was just like, at least the Pittsburgh show was like pretty fucked up. Right. You know, so I mean, I kind of feel like it's just in terms of, like, I'd love to see GB blaze again in whatever context, whether it's one more show or anything at all. I'm game, but I almost feel like that as far as trying to parlay it into anything more than I don't like the term hobby for music, but like anything more than just than a kind of a side project, like a life side project. I mean, I almost feel like at this point it would kind of be starting anew. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's like just because, I mean, it's not that we don't still have people checking for Grand Buffet. I'm sure there are some, but
yeah, when you start turning over those rocks, you never know. And you know, also there is something to be said when like generations sort of shift over, and then you have a new crop of people too. Well, okay, because so you know, try to wrap this up a little bit. Although, like, I could sit and chat with you for a long time, because it's been a long time since I've seen you. It's
kind of a double whammy. It's kind of us catching up while trying to come with the GB narrative. So I feel like it's a lot. It's a lot to try to.
Yeah, especially in the context of one conversation on the front porch. You know.
Yeah.
But one, I really appreciate your time, because I know it's been tricky. I'm actually pretty amazed that I was able to talk to both you and Mrs. Paintbrush in the same trip and do it and have this kind of be this thing, which, because, you know, first and foremost, I mean, and you probably know this by now, but I love this group. I mean, I love Grand Buffet. I've loved to put people onto the group, and the handful of shows that we did, and the, you know, even the Herb article and the Culturama shit. It's always just wanted to spread the word, because I always thought it was just this. I thought you guys are brilliant comedic minds, you know, and somehow fusing in with like this kind of very unique like hip hop sort of sensibility and shit. But there's like a whole like hard rock thing too, so it's kind of hard to quantify. But anyway, yeah, so I just appreciate your time, basically.
Respect, man. Yeah. Respect. Like, you've been a champion of the GB.
Oh, no question. Time. Yeah, and will remain to. Yeah.
Respect.
So so I guess, I mean, this is pretty nebulous too. Like, where do you see, like, now looking back, like, after a kind of hard hitting, maybe 10 years of touring and releasing stuff and pushing through, like during this sort of kind of challenging era of like the DIY era of music, of physical music, like kind of pre-digital distribution, the kind of advent of smartphones and like kind of sophisticated camera technology. You guys were banging it out with like limited resources. So looking back at the legacy of this group, like, are you like, how do you view it? Like, are you happy with the stuff you guys have done up to this point? Like, I know that might be like kind of like a relative question, but
I mean, I'm definitely, I'm very proud of what GB was able to accomplish. If I had a gripe, I mean, I could drum one up, but I kind of feel like the short answer to that question is like I'm super psyched on what we accomplished. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if horrible shit happens to one of us and then it's no longer an option for us to blaze as GB again, I could say like I'm real fired up about. I feel like it was time well spent.
Yeah.
Super psyched on the catalog. Again, I hope to add to it someday, but if that doesn't happen, I'm super psyched on what already exists. And definitely very psyched on the years on the road. I mean, they were at times brutal. I mean, it was by no means a cakewalk.
No, touring across America and Europe, which you did so many times, especially if you're doing it in an Astro van a lot of the times too, like in your own vehicle.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
Definitely. And it's like, I used to get really annoyed when I hear bands bitch about how tough the road is, but it's like, it takes its toll. There's a grit factor, like you said, especially doing it in vans and rental cars as opposed to doing it like with these buses and
right.
Shit.
And you've done both. I mean, you've done them.
Yeah,
all, right?
Yeah. We've dabbled in the bigger scale stuff. But it's it's weird. Like when I was a few years younger, like when I was in my early 30s, it's crazy to think, but it's kind of when things started to, I guess, slow down. Jackson was pretty burned out with touring. I'm not saying I wasn't, but I kind of feel like he had sort of hit a wall. I don't know. I'm curious to see what his thoughts on it are. But I mean, I was 31, 32, and things were really slowing down. It was like, all right, the years of dodging the day job, not even dodging it, not needing it. It's like,
right.
gotta bite the bullet, cop this day job. I was like for a brief period, like very self-conscious about like, oh shit, man. Like, I thought I'd be doing it so big at this stage in my life. And it really stressed me the fuck out, but that didn't really last long. You know what I mean? Like it just, I don't know. I feel now, even though it's like, being a parent is such a wild mind fuck in a way that is awesome, like right. In a way that is fire. I could never imagine how fire it is, like, but it's still a mind fuck. Like I don't have my brain wrapped around the fact that I have a daughter and she's like posted up inside eating crackers, probably, some wild shit. But so it's like, yeah, I mean, could GB like become once again the fucking like the road warrior entity that it was? It's like, no, at the moment we couldn't. I mean, I can't disappear for 6 months.
Well, of course,
Yeah. But I feel like GB it could evolve into another thing.
Yeah, I absolutely
chapter,
think so. I think there is a second life that awaits this group.
It gets me psyched to hear you say that, but I feel like that is there if we choose to like activate it or pursue it. I feel like
absolutely,
it's there, but it's got to be it's got to be a 2-man decision to fire it up, you know?
Yeah, no question. Okay. Yeah.
But I don't think I mentioned my homie yet, which is wild, but DJ Jester, who, and this is not to undermine, because we had a brief run of shows with DJ Thanksgiving Brown.
Yeah. Thank you, and I appreciate that.
And it was fire. I know we had talked for a minute about trying to do a longer run together, which would have been badass.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of fun, a lot of laughs.
Yeah, definitely, in like 2004. But, you know, ended up linking up with DJ Jester. And
who's an incredible DJ, too.
He's awesome, and such a badass dude, like such a beautiful dude. But he's kind of like in a very understated but like important way. He's kind of like kept the coals hot, I feel like, for GB.
Really?
I feel like he has. And again, that doesn't mean that anything can happen, or it doesn't mean that anything will happen necessarily, but it's like he's kind of, you know, he's like a little devil on my shoulder, kind of.
Is he still in Texas?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And I feel like in a different way, he's probably still like a little devil on Jackson's shoulder too, you know, where it's just sort of like, you know, just I can hear him sometimes saying like, you know, you want to tour, man. Like, you know, you want to record, man. Just do it, man. Just do it. And, you know, and I feel like, because, I mean, he was a dude who, we had a lot of cats over, not a lot. There are a handful of cats over the years who saddled up as DJ for Grand Buffet, one of whom was you.
Respect.
But with Jester, it was definitely a commitment. I mean, we were in the van with that dude for the better part of 2 years, like 05 through 07. Yeah, like we did a lot of touring, man. I want to say, I don't think I'm pulling this number out of my ass. I want to say in 2005 we did something like 160 shows or something crazy. Man. And then 6 and 7, it wasn't that many numbers of actual shows, but we were still on tour for months, you know, just blocks, like, you know. So
what was it? You did Third Eye Blind during that time? That
was later. That was actually in 2008 when our homie Girl Talk was really killing it, really doing it big. You know, because we had put him on as an opener for some stuff back in the day, and it was kind of like, it was cool. It was him kind of like respect, return of the favor. Do you guys want to hop on?
Right.
So we did a lot of shows with him over that time. One was a big chunk of touring. A lot of it was these one-offs. You know, it was super cool. But that led to us linking up with the cats from Third Eye Blind, which was kind of a long story. The short version is the drummer, Brad, who is an original member. He's one of only 2 original members of Third Eye Blind. He was in this other band called Year Long Disaster, and these motherfuckers were incredible. Like, just really mind-blowingly fucking good. And GB played one show with them in St. Louis. Don't remember the name of the venue, but just, I see a lot of bands on the road, appreciate almost all of them in one way or the other. But at that point, it was like to see a band that just blew my fucking brains out. It hadn't happened in a minute. Right. It was like, holy shit. You know, cop the CD. Really did not seem like they were checking for GB at all. It was kind of like they were like, whatever. But like, you know, cop the album. Loved the album. So later that year, no, I'm sorry, it was a full year later. It was a year later. Gillis put us on as direct support for him at this show it's some fucked up show at some college in West Virginia. His fans are fucking turds. But that's no diss on him. He's the man. But like, yeah, it's almost like a Wesley Willis scenario, just on a much bigger scale. And Girl Talk isn't schizophrenic, but like, just like a lot of motherfuckers, just busters come out to represent. But it was like this big ass college show with like all these fucking bands, like Kelly Pickler and like all these motherfuckers. And like Third Eye Blind was playing. It was like, you know, and I'm a fan. Like I'm a fan. I dig a lot of pop shit. I dig a lot of, and I was kind of like, that's pretty fucking wild, man. So like, we had played. I think Gillis was just like getting off stage, and we were all kind of posted up in the green room, and like fucking Stephen Jenkins like sticks his head in the door, and it was just like, like, girl talk. It's like, I saw you 2 nights ago in Brooklyn. Stephen Jenkins doesn't really talk like Rip Taylor. I just, that's how I'm remembering it for some reason. And then I kind of like, they were talking, he was in Brooklyn and they had seen him there. They were there fucking around and they saw him play. And so I just kind of like let them rap and just kind of politely went up and was just like, you know, Jenkins, like, I'm a big fucking fan, man. And the drummer, Brad, was there and was just like, yeah, like, Grand Buffet, like, we played with you guys and I was like, he's like, my other band, Year Long Disaster. It's like, we played with you guys in St. Louis. And Stephen Jenkins was like, you're the guy from Grand Buffet? And it was just like, nice. Like, SJ knows who the fuck Grand Buffet is. Like,
Word.
He was balls deep in Charlize Theron, dude. Like, I don't care. People can hate all they want. Those dudes rule. They fucking rule. Not just because of that. That's me being crass. And I shouldn't say shit like that. I'm a father now. But they rule, you know. And a few months later, their agent called us and was like, got an opportunity. And at this point, you know, things with GB had really kind of, the vibes were not so good. I mean, without going into too much detail, like, it was very much like, you know, we were both still kind of chained to it because it was our only job at that point. Right, sure. You know,
there's a lot of stress that comes with that.
Totally. And like, and when, you know, even at our peak, we were never a money tree. You know, it's even when we were doing it pretty big, it's like times were still kind of tough, you know? I hate to sound like I'm pissing and moaning because I'm not, but it's just like, you got to let the chips fall where they might. But so at that time, it was really kind of like, you know, not getting along so well, not wanting to be in a van with each other for another month, 2 months, whatever. And then when that call came, it was kind of like, we can't not do this tour. Like, the fucking insanity of, and I know that Third Eye Blind isn't, you know, they're not the household name level of huge that they were. But sure, those dudes have persevered in a way that is really fucking impressive. And like, they have fans coming out of their asses. And that was a big fucking tour. And that was. Were
you direct support?
We were.
Wow.
We were for say it was about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And then we that took us from the Midwest out to the West Coast, and then we ended up booking our own shit to kind of get us back to
come back home.
Right. Yeah. So that was fire, you know, and that you know, it definitely breathed some life back into GB, but at the same time, we were still at that time where I think things needed to kind of go on pause for
right,
you know.
Well, man, I mean, that's I know I wanted to I wanted to ask that story, and it's funny talking about how, since we haven't talked in so long, catching up. We could keep doing this for hours and stuff. Where I would just be like, "What? I thought I remember hearing this about this," because we didn't even ask. I didn't even ask you about Kid Rock, and I know you did some shows with Kid Rock and Head PE too. I think. Did you do Head PE?
Never played with Head PE.
Oh, okay. Something similar though, right?
Well, now I'm trying to think. Two Skinny J's.
Oh yeah. Okay.
There was a minute where like still no one was checking for us in Pittsburgh. But I was enough of a fucking hustler that I got in good with some of the bigger promoters because they would give me, this wasn't really a pay-to-play thing. It's like a rite of passage. People bitch about it. But, you know, local opener, you know, here's 50 tickets. Show me what you can do. And I got very good at selling 50 tickets, you know. Did I buy 7 or 8 myself? You know what I mean? Did my dad buy a few? But I got very good at moving 50 tickets and, you know, maybe moving 100 tickets.
Right.
So like we got to be, it's just kind of funny because, you know, requisitely bands that were established locally that could draw got these tight opening slots where I was kind of like, nah, fuck that. Like, give me the tickets, I'll give you the money. We'll make it happen.
That's some true hustler shit, right?
Yeah, I busted my little hump, man. But so yeah, we got to you know, it was, and being a local opener in and of itself is kind of a depressing thing. Like it's not really, it's not really something you want to like be telling the seed about. Like, you know, back in the day, I bought a bunch of tickets to my own band so I could open for Kid Rock. You know,
and the crowd fucking hated us.
Yeah. But the one show that really came from, or that I feel like really dope shit came from was we opened for Kool Keith when he came through the Berg.
Nice.
And that was just like, in and of itself, like little dream come true.
Sure.
One of the masters, one of my personal favorites, and like that was fire.
Dope.
The crowd was 50-50. That was, like, it was very volatile. Like, cats were really down, and then cats were like violently hating. So it was cool. It was cool.
And that's what I love. Yeah, I think that's one of the big things I always loved about you guys is that you're able, the level of like resiliency, like on stage when it comes to a crowd reaction has always been like really admirable to see how you would, I mean, I don't know how it felt once you got off stage when you're absorbing, you know, all types of different people's reactions, whether it's like hate or love, but like, you guys seem to power through it so well and make it seem so effortless, you know, dealing with like whatever, if the crowd sucked or not, you know.
I humbly acknowledge that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was one of our superpowers. It was like
undoubtedly,
and that definitely came from, I think, from cutting our teeth in the Berg. You know, like during the time that we did, you know,
sure.
The late 90s, you know, you can be as artsy or experimental or as whatever as you want, but like in the 90s, if you were a white dude spitting raps, it was like you were gonna get hate. Yeah. You were gonna get hate from black cats and from white cats. Like you were just gonna get fucking hate, and that definitely it seems crazy now. I feel like like adults like 25 would be like, bullshit, man. But it's like, yeah, it was a different time, you know.
Absolutely.
It was
very different.
Yeah. And I do feel like we were kind of you know, we were carved out of wood, you know. By the time we opened for Kool Keith when he came through the Berg, it's like, yeah, those cats could have fucking, they didn't have shit. You know, I mean, the haters is just like, you suck. It's like, that's nothing. Like, that's nothing. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, listen, man, I appreciate so much your time doing this with me, man. And
dude, it's a pleasure. It's wonderful to see you. And I'm psyched that you're keeping it moving.
Thank you.
And yeah, man, maybe we'll try to do the sequel sometime.
Yeah, maybe with the both of y'all.
That might happen.
Together.
That's a tall order.
Well, if anybody can try.
If anyone can make it happen, it's you.
No doubt.
For sure.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
That was awesome as fuck. And I appreciate all you guys for listening, tuning in to the House List Podcast, my weekly podcast. My name is Peter Agast, and I'm the host and the producer of the show. And I gotta send so much gratitude and thanks to Lord Grunge and Grand Buffet and Jackson for being a part of this special 2-part series. It got me super excited going back and listening to some of the music and the albums, watching some of the music videos. If you haven't had a chance, seek out the old videos for both Candy Bars and Cool as Hell. Yeah, I mean, I think these guys are brilliant, and I always have since the moment I saw them. And I wouldn't have tracked them down if I didn't think so. So I hope that you guys, you know, if you're completely unaware of who they were, you know, you might seek out some of the material and find yourself digging it. I mean, the live show was something to behold, that's for sure. And I hope I miss seeing them live. I hope that at some point in time we'll all have another opportunity to. And who knows, perhaps this very dual episode special mini series of the House List could have somehow been the catalyst spark to make it all happen. And I would be so pleased to be able to see these guys back on stage again. So yeah, what else can I say? Please subscribe on iTunes. If you listen to it on SoundCloud, just hit the like button or the repost button, which I really appreciate. If you're on SoundCloud, repost it on your page if you can, or just copy and paste the link and send it to someone. And yeah, thank you guys so much. And just big love to the city of Pittsburgh. It's been very nice to be here, and to my very special guest, Grandma Faye, for participating, and you guys for listening. Thanks so much. I could sit here and talk a lot about the group, but hopefully all the stuff we covered in the two conversations really brings that point home. I regret sorely not bringing this up to Lord Grunge, but he put out this tour only CD back on one of their tours. I think they only made 100 of them, where it's stand-up comedians, and these are like road comics that are not that great. And they did an album where they're heckling these guys, but they're not like in the audience. They're like overdubbed these heckles, and I wish I asked them about it, because that shit was so fucking brilliant. I loved it so much. I still own it. I got all my stuff from Grandma Faye still. So anyway, yes, I'm going to close this out with one of his solo joints. I'm trying to pick which one. So he's put out 2 solo albums as well, so seek those out if you can. Those might be a little harder to find, but I'm going to pick something, and because I always thought this guy was a totally brilliant producer too. The combination of the two guys with the kind of 808s and the synth stuff, and yeah, just great shit. I'm a fan, as you can tell. So yes, thanks again so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode of The House List. All right, y'all, peace, take care of one another, be good. All right, later.
Yes, this is the Lordy Man. Peace and blessings be with all who spit that fire. Stay off my dick though. Yeah. The cold crush hit me at the age of 4. My brother put me on the rap back when rap was war. Fuck it. The cold crush hit me at the age of 4. My brother put me on the rap back when rap was war. When a young white buck could get smacked or more for fucking with the sounds coming out of New York. Kings from Queens had us begging for more. When the new John dropped, yeah, we stormed the store. We checked for the shit most whites ignored. Melly Mel, Mo D, cold rhymes galore. At the age of 12, I was in the pits and met a redhead fuck who could shoot the gift. Hold up. At the age of 12, I was in the pits and met a redhead fuck who could shoot the gift. We spent some time doing stupid shit. Wrote some rhymes with a useless kid, but we put in work and cold built the band, and cold cocked the van, and cold rocked the land. And all the way from the bird to France we had motherfuckers cold clapping their hands. Come on.